Okay, hello everybody. So I went down the rabbit hole for this one. This was announced last April 2nd. So it's about almost 4 days old, pretty new. This is from the Replit company. They're known for giving you almost like a collab experience, a developer environment online where that you can share with others. And their idea was, can we create an LLM that serves as the like the brain or the agent orchestration for your IDEs. And the idea behind this was there are in your IDEs there is already a language server protocol, which is what takes in the inputs. It understands all the inputs and the changes that's happening in your code and has the semantic understanding. It's the one that's responsible for giving you reporting some of your errors, your generating your autocompletes, and those when you can click to go to a specific line of your code in different files across in your environment. So the question was so similar. This is a little related to Albert's situation where we're using this to control instead of controlling your PC. Can you use this? Can you use a language model to control the actual developer environment, so your IDE within your IDE. And they went through some extensive ideas. So like this is just your go-to, right? Clicking, you can go directly to the other files. But their hypothesis was that because the language server protocol already has like a list of the instructions of what you had been taking, the lines of code that you had removed or edited, and every time you start the session, it creates that those lines of code. These are some of those also that you publish in GitHub. It's the ones that you see that are turning green and red, and if you're deleting lines and editing. So these are all from the LSP, and these are like behind the scenes information that your IDE is doing to help you with your developer experience. Now, what they noticed is that there's a huge opportunity in the middle where about 60% of your coding issues could have been resolved by some semantic understanding LLM. And if there's an LLM here that can reference what your next step should be, then the LSP can actually enhance and create these changes itself. So in essence, to put it all together, this is like having your own offline GitHub Copilot. So instead of sending your blocks of code to the servers for that these commercial models can harvest information from, this one you keep it all within your IDE. So you can have an IDE like Replit, which is also offline, or eventually you could get this model and plug it into your IDE like VS Code, and then it can understand the syntax and the way your progress, the coding progress has been for that session, and suggest specific changes and errors as the LSP keeps reminding you of. So if there's some indentation errors, these basic things, it can translate it now into actions. So it's an LLM that they've trained, but it plugs into your IDE so that it becomes an agent. It plugs in, so it's adding like this brain for semantic understanding on your code. And how it works is, so they did a couple of things. I won't get into too much detail, but this is based off of, and it's a 7 billion parameters, so it's a pretty lightweight LLM that they did. They used the DeepSeek coder, which is a fine tune from one of the 7 billion parameter models. And it starts with the main file that you're editing, the lines of code that have been numbered, and then the LSP error that comes up. So here in this case, the command first, the screen is not part of the module of Turtle, and the actual expected output that the LLM should return is that remove from line 3 the screen command and return the method screen like this. And this will get executed if you allow it to. So it was a lot of pre-training and alignment between the files, the list of commands that you had written, the errors that had been pulled up by the LSP, and then what physical adjustment has to be done in the code. And the amazing thing, so this was just their pipeline. They just got information from, so the operational transformation, these are the line-by-line codes that you're seeing. They get the REPL snapshot, which just shows that whole session code. They were just checking if these two are in alignment and if they're able to reconstruct it. They got some of the diagnostics from the errors. And then they used all of these information as their training data. And then they realized that across different IDEs, you could have different ways of semantically representing the code. So they used a standard way, they used DSPy to create these data sets. And that had been their data store. Then they fine-tuned the DeepSeek coder, which is more or less at the time the best for code instruction at that size. And then they used a lot of these strategies like fully sharded data parallels for speeding up the pre-training and stored the models. And they used NVIDIA Triton for serving. And then from this, the experience is when you get an issue from your LSP, it pulls the model and then it tells you line by line what it is and tries to apply the code in real time. So under the hood, it's really just GitHub Copilot, but it's in a local instance, or at least within that contained environment. It's non-third party, it's baked into your IDE. And what is the advantage of this? We know GitHub Copilot is based off of GPT-4, which is 1.8 trillion parameters. It takes some time to generate. The advantage of the 7 billion is it's really fast. But just how good is it? The surprising thing is that it actually beats GPT-4 Turbo. So you can see that GPT-4 Turbo just got slightly beat by a 7 billion parameter coding model, and it's already baked into the IDE. So in the future, we might be able to see these swappable models that can help enhance our coding experience. And that was the gist of it. Unfortunately, I went down the rabbit hole. I realized they hadn't released the code, so I couldn't demo anything today. But I feel free to reach out and look at this blog, which discusses everything and all their design decisions. So that was it. Thanks, everybody.
So, question for Patrick. I thought the Replit was always the browser-based IDE that they were pushing, right? Do they have a IDE that in your local one you can install?
No, it's web-based, but the idea was that this one takes over the IDE itself. So they don't have, so it's their way of saying that they have their own local GitHub Copilot baked into their service. Well, it's on the web, but the idea here is that eventually we can put it into VS Code, or we can develop the same strategy and have something internal to us that serves as an LLM agent.
I see. Okay, thanks.
Hey, thank you, Patrick. It's amazing, right? We just a year ago, we were also impressed that in Copilot, like in a year or so, more than a year ago, all of us were excited that Copilot can do magic. And now we are realizing that things have moved so far, you can do better with this much smaller model and keeping it local. So any more questions, guys, before we move on to the next?